Another year, another Galaxy Note, right? Well, maybe not. Samsung's work with the Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge from earlier this year was already pretty impressive, but the thoughtful changes that went into the new $850 Galaxy Note 7 make it my favorite Android phone of the year. Well, so far anyway. Let's take a closer look. First off, we have to talk design. The Galaxy Note 7 is by far the most comfortable phablet Samsung has ever made, and frankly, I'm kind of in love with it. The body is made of metal and 5th generation Gorilla Glass, and the front and back are curved symmetrically. That makes for a rounder body than you might be used to, that feels great and means your hand meat is a little less likely to touch something on screen by accident. It's also the first Galaxy Note to be rated IP68 water resistant, so it'll do just fine if you take it for a swim and start writing on the screen underwater like I did. Speaking of the screen, the 5.7-inch Super AMOLED panel here is gorgeous, and not just because it's curved. You've got these typically punchy colors that come with AMOLED displays, and the viewing angles are actually great too, but then again, what did you really expect from Samsung? It's too bad the Note 7 media experience is let down a bit by the lackluster speaker on the phone's bottom, but hey, you'll fare much better once you plug headphones in. Meanwhile, performance is about as good as you'd expect from a 2016 flagship phone, which is to say it's very, very fast. After all, the Note 7 shares the same quad-core Snapdragon 820 chipset, 4GB of RAM, and Adreno 530 GPU with the S7 and S7 Edge. Either way though, the Note 7 absolutely flies. My daily routine was no problem for Samsung's latest, and that includes all the games I dip into after hours. You can rest easy, there's more than enough power here to keep things moving at a buttery pace even when there's a lot going on. The similarities don't end here either. The Note 7 also has the same 12-megapixel camera as the S7 siblings, and it's still perhaps my favorite camera on any Android phone. Photos I took came out bright and punchy with loads of detail, and since the pixels on that sensor are pretty big at 1.4 microns, low-light performance is generally very good as well. The Note 7 feels like a very familiar device in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean Samsung hasn't tried to mix it up. There's an iris scanner above the screen, for instance, which you can use to unlock the phone and gain access to the stuff you've locked away in your secure folder. It can work incredibly fast, especially if you get good at lining up your eyes just so, but things can get hairy if you use corrective lenses. Contacts seem to work just fine, but I ran into a lot of trouble using it with my glasses. It would take longer to recognize my eyes through the lenses, and sometimes it just didn't work at all. Samsung also fitted the Note 7 with a USB Type-C port for charging and data transfer instead of the typical micro USB port. Now this in and of itself isn't actually a big deal, but it's kind of interesting to see Samsung pull the trigger now instead of waiting for the Galaxy S8 or whatever it's called next year. Thankfully, we also get more storage right out of the box compared to the S7 and S7 Edge, 64GB to be precise, and you can build on that by adding a micro SD card. More importantly, Samsung continues to make TouchWiz less annoying. In the old days, the interface was just plain awful, but now it's actually pretty nice. And trust me, I'm just as surprised as you are. Samsung did a fine job cleaning up the interface and fixing dumb emissions this time. All those circular icons, they're gone. The app launcher has a dedicated search bar. The settings page has been streamlined. It's still a far cry from the stock Android marshmallow I know and love, but Samsung deserves credit for managing to make TouchWiz a surprisingly appealing alternative. Oh, and since the Note 7 has a curved screen, Samsung also gave it the familiar Edge interface. Swiping a tab on the side of the screen brings up special panes for quick access to contacts, apps, and even shortcuts like a selfie button. They're nice to have and all, but if you're anything like me, you'll forget them or, more likely, just ignore them before long. And then there is the S Pen. Samsung gave the newly waterproof stylus a few new tricks this year, like translating words and magnifying the screen up to 300%. Easily the neatest, though, is the ability to make GIFs on the fly. You can actually record parts of the screen, doodle all over them, and share them to the farthest corners of the internet. I'm glad to see Samsung hasn't run out of ideas for the S Pen yet, but really, none of these new features feel all that compelling. If you weren't an S Pen fan before, you probably won't change your mind after playing with the Note 7 now. That said, it almost doesn't matter. The whole Note 7 package is still excellent, even if you never pop the pen out of its hiding place. At the end of it all, the Galaxy Note 7 isn't a perfect phone. It's expensive, and the S Pen still won't make sense to everyone. Even so, you can't deny that the Note 7 is an incredibly well-built, incredibly well-rounded device. By combining the knowledge that went into the S7 siblings with a number of subtle improvements to the Note formula, Samsung has built its best phone in a long time.